Hi everybody, hope you're doing marvellously well. We're big, bad and back for another Fact Friday. So I hope you're all doing marvellously well. There's a couple of fun questions here. I love just opening these up and flying by the seat of our pants. If you haven't already, please subscribe down below. You can hit the notification bell and you will be notified. And of course, you can go to producelikeapro.com and sign up for the email list and get a whole bunch of free goodies. Okay, so the first question is probably going to be quite contentious, but also a great topic. What's the best song structure for the music industry at the moment? Wow. I mean, that is such a broad question. But I suppose it made me think of all of the obvious kind of knee-jerk reactions, which I think we should probably cover. And one of those, of course, is chord sequences. Because you're saying about song structure. Let's go through a whole bunch of things. First of all, it feels like for the last 20 plus years that this is the de rigueur chord sequence. 6, 4, 1, 5. And then, of course, there's the ever-changing 1, 5, 6, 4, which, of course, is exactly the same thing, just starting on the 3rd and 4th chord. And the reality is those chords are so familiar with us. You could write songs in minutes that fit around. Literally, you know. I mean, honestly, we could do that all day. And it's simple, melodic, it's catchy, we know the chord sequences, but yes, it bores the schnizzle out of you. You have to be aware of these things. It's very easy, and it's so easy to criticize, obvious things like that. Turn on the radio, hear 6415 continuously, hear 1564, hear variations of that all the time. It's very easy, but also it is smart to be aware. Meaning, maybe in a song composition, you want to use some of that for some familiarity, but then break out of it and do something more interesting. The reality is that chord sequence is in some of the best written songs ever. Just because it's familiar doesn't make it necessarily bad, but yes, it does get really, really boring when you turn on the radio and you hear that continuous chord sequence. Having said that, the most used chord sequence of all time, of course, is 1, 4, 5. It's... 145 is the root of every blues song, every rock song that we love, and there is nothing wrong with it. The reality is that familiarity does breed contempt, but it also creates amazing music. So, great question, because it's allowing us to talk about a lot of things. So, song structure is a broad term. Most stuff that's on the radio always constituted 3 minutes and 20 seconds. I've had 5 record deals in my career. I've A&R'd at a couple of labels, and I produced obviously a lot of records and recorded a lot of singles, and the unwritten or written law is 3 minutes 20 or less. There is always latitude to exceed that. Of course there is. And of course, my favorite song of all time, or actually two of my favorite songs of all time, are Bohemian Rhapsody and Hey Jude, 2 songs which completely defy the pretense of a 3 minute 20. However, again, there is nothing wrong with adhering to these things if you want to push the boundaries. And if your song is so unbelievably amazing and it happens to be that length, who cares? If it's so unbelievably amazing and it happens to be 3 times that length, of course, who cares? We can argue about chord sequences and song structures all day, but 3 minutes 20 is kind of what radio stations expect. Now, the old idea of the intro, you kind of, and then the song comes in, has pretty much disappeared. The idea with that intro was to allow the DJ to introduce your song. Here's the new one from Fred and the Fredricksons. And that would play over this like little intro, and then in would come the song. Increasingly, that has disappeared. Almost everything these days just hits you, slams you over the head from the get-go, because we're not in a world where everything is consumed on the radio anymore. Let's be honest, Spotify is probably far more important and powerful than radio to everybody under the age of 30. Kids are increasingly growing up not listening to traditional terrestrial radio like we did growing up. You have to be aware of that. So the song structure can have an intro, but don't be afraid to do a single edit without it. There is some of the secrets in this question, is don't be afraid to make edits that fit certain formats and certain expectations. I work with artists and tend to do mainly organic stuff with some programming, but an artist I'm currently working with, we've been doing dance song remixes. We've been giving people opportunity to remix it so we can have something that's more current sounding, because I work with a lot of artists that have a few million plays on an organic song that they produced acoustic guitar that we've done with band elements and some programming. And then their next song is the same song, but a remix of it at like 9 million plays. So you'd be amazed. Thinking that way is super smart. So with all of these things in mind, song structure still should be, if it's a single, get to the chorus. You know the old adage, which I actually heard Tom Petty say, don't bore us, get to the chorus. It doesn't mean that, yes, it has to be within 30 or 45 seconds, but let's be honest, radio does love that. But again, radio isn't necessarily that important, but Spotify is. And playlists on Spotify are something I would think about definitely. Go to Spotify, find the most popular playlists and listen to what's happening, because the variety is amazing. My son, for instance, is 13 and he loves everything. His currently favorite band is Steely Dan, but he also listens to stuff that does not make sense if you were a Steely Dan fan. He listens to all kinds of music. He'll hate me talking about this. So my point is like variety is where Spotify playlists are at now. It's amazing that you can get all of these different genres fitting together. They share one thing and one thing only in common. All of the songs are great. It's why Queen has managed to, regardless of the film, they were already number 75 in the world when the film came out. So this is in the world. They were the number one legacy artists in the world. And it's not because of their thousands of incredible, amazing album tracks. It's because they have Another One Bites the Dust, We Are the Champions. These massive songs that people love. Crazy Little Thing Called Love. These are hundreds of millions of plays. And that's the Spotify world. It's the big, big songs. And people care less and less. I'm not saying they don't entirely care about this, but they can care less about genres than ever. And to be honest, that's good for guys and girls like us. People making music, because now it means you can make the music that you want. It just has to be an amazing song. All bets are off now. It's a really good time to be making music. But back to the song structure. 3 minutes 20 is the pop format. 3 minutes 20 or less. Getting to the chorus within 45 seconds is the pop format. So, no need for an intro anymore, but if you have one, you can always edit it off. So, verse, within 45 seconds, first chorus. Second verse comes in, then the second chorus, then the bridge, and then a double chorus and out. That is the most standard pop structure. And within that pop single structure, you can do whatever the heck you like. I always think of that great quote about Stanley Kubrick. When his art director was asked about what it was like to work with Stanley Kubrick on 2001: A Space Odyssey, he said it was the most frustrating experience in his life because Stanley had this exact vision of what he wanted. And then he challenged his art director within these exact parameters of what he wanted to do whatever he liked. And what an impossible task, seemingly. Well, it's the same with the 3 minutes 20, the pop song. Within that structure, do whatever you like. But when they asked Stanley Kubrick's art director, what was it like? He said it was totally frustrating, but the best work he ever did in his life. Sometimes we need those boundaries. It's great to say, hey, Bohemian Rhapsody, my favorite song. Hey Jude, one of my other favorite songs. Stairway to Heaven, one of my favorite and one of the greatest songs. All of those songs are incredible. But to be like super elitist and go, I don't want to write a pop song. No, I want to write. Yeah, cool. We all want to write All Along the Watchtower. We all want to do that. Please do. Go and write the new All Along the Watchtower. But to think that that is the pinnacle is foolish, because there's so many great songs, particularly the Beatles songs pre kind of 66. Rubber Soul is covered in 2-minute 20 songs. And please don't tell me that there's better songs than any song written on Rubber Soul. So it's a good thing to force yourself to write in that pop format. It's a lot tougher than you think if you want to write a great song. It's easy, as we showed earlier, to just pick up and use the 6-4-1-5 structure, or the 1-5-6-4, the 4-5-4-5, you know, for a pre-chorus to hit the 1 or the 6 on the downbeat. You know, the 2 chord in the bridge. All of these things are great calling cards for writing great songs, but they're not a guarantee of a great song. They're just things that you learn as a songwriter. We could do a whole episode on songwriting, and I think we shall. There are tricks and little things that are interesting to learn. One of my favorites is the 3 dominant, which is a great leading chord. So you can be like, it's just a beautiful way to move around. There's all of these little tricks that you learn, little ear candy moments to manipulate your ear into doing something else. That's the point. I think it is a challenge to work within pre-existing ideas. I think it is. If you force yourself to write that 3-minute 20 song, to work within the certain structures that people are anticipating, that emotionally we respond to, it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing at all. So if you can write a great song within that 3-minute 20 pop idea, within that get to the chorus before 45 seconds, within that verse, chorus, bridge, double chorus out, because there are amazing songs that are written in that format. Do it, try it. But it's a long answer to a really great question. I believe really, really strongly that there is no right way or wrong way to write a song. That is not my point. My point is like accessibility to your average listener, and the formats that a lot of places require sets a whole new challenge in itself. It's like painting the Sistine Chapel. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not the easiest thing to do. It's like, okay, so Michelangelo, one of the greatest artists of all time, has to lie on his back and paint the Sistine Chapel on his own. And he has to do all of his... Give yourself something that makes it tough. So, I don't know. You know me. I'm always encouraging mixing genres, mixing different ideas together to make great music. So, working in that song structure is not necessarily a bad thing. What have you done? Let us know. Have you taken a reggae-infused track and made it super, super pop? I think of like UB40 covering, Red, Red Wine. I mean, what a masterpiece. What a great song. It was such a huge hit. I love the period I grew up in where we had Two Tone and the Specials and all of those incredible bands. And they wrote great pop songs. The Cure wrote great pop songs that were really credible. I challenge anybody to tell me the Cure aren't one of the coolest bands that ever lived. New Order, super cool band. Like they all had something to say. And they had an edge to them, and yet they all wrote pop songs. Let's not get too caught up with like, oh, I don't want to write in that format. That's too pop, It Ain't Me, Babe. That's a great sing-along pop song. And that's Bob Dylan at his finest. Just Like a Woman. That's a song you can pick up a guitar and sing along to. Great pop song. But it's Bob Dylan, and it's an amazing song. So it's very easy, not that this was asked in the question, but I know I get to see a lot of like people like going, oh, that's just pop. Well, you know what? So was pretty much everything the Beatles wrote. It was pop songs, and they were amazing. What about this? That was a #1 single for weeks in the UK. And it's a pop song. We don't need no education. You can sing along. Every kid I knew at school knew every word and would sing along with it. It was completely genreless. You could be a two-tone, punk rock, new wave fan, new wave of British metal, although we didn't call it that in England, we just call it metal. You could be into all of those genres, and every single person loved that song. Completely genreless, just great song, pop song, sing along. I think it's more of a challenge. I would love to see more rock bands, indie bands, write songs that could get on the radio, and less complaining about how the radio's so bad. How about writing songs as good as the songs we're talking about now and get them on the radio? So great question. Thank you for opening it up to a lot of debate and a lot of people having their opinions down below. Please let us know, what are your opinions? I love this subject. This is very close to my heart because I work with a lot of artists that don't want to write songs like that. And I'm like, what do you mean? Pop as in popular? I still believe Pink Floyd, Zeppelin wrote songs that were like that. I rest my case. What is your take on multiple vocal takes to fake a choir, 48 voices, and how best to treat them? Depends on how many people you have. Obviously, the larger amount of people you have, the easier that's going to be. But if you're telling me it's one person or two people, that's a difference. If you can get to 3 or 4, then the world's your oyster. We've done a lot of gang vocals with 3 or 4 people. 4 really starts making a difference. The first thing we do when we have multiples, 2, 3, or 4 people, is stick the mic up in the room and then move around. One person to stand closer to the mic, 2 or 3 people behind them. Then do a couple of takes and then move it around. So there's different levels of voices. The reality is if you can blend it and make it a little bit more random, the better. It will sound like more people. If you can get the balances slightly different with all the different voices, that will really, really help. The reality is the chorusing of many people is what gives us that choir effect. If you get 100 people singing exactly in tune, absolutely perfect, it will sound tiny. Hence why it's not a great idea to tune all of your background vocals. The first thing I do when I've assembled maybe 12 takes of 4 people to give you your 48, I would just vocal align or just hand move them around so the timing's really accurate. But don't tune it unless you really, really have a bad performance. And if you've got the option of singing it again, sing it again. Because all of those people together, slightly out of tune and slightly out of time within the beginning and the end of the performance are what makes it sound massive. If you can get it tight by aligning it so they start and finish, that's pretty much all you need to do. Like I said, obviously if there's somebody really badly out of tune, get them out of the room. We've had that happen, haven't we, Eric?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Eric was out with some girls doing some backgrounds, and I was trying to be very diplomatic. I leaned in and said, I think we have enough male voices on this one, Eric. Read into that whatever you will. Needless to say, Eric has not done any more background vocals since that day. He didn't have on his resume that he was a singer. My point is the more people you can get in, the better, obviously. Now, if you're saying with one person, that's tough. You're going to have to move around, get away from the mic, create different spatial elements around it. Slap delays are good. Out of time delays that aren't in time with it will roughen it up a little bit. Again, just don't tune yourself too hard. If you take your voice 48 times, even if you're singing different harmonies and parts, and then tune it really accurately, it will get very small. It's the differences in inflections, tonality, pitch, and everything that make something feel big. When you listen to those football chants, like the English football term, where it's we put an extra syllable in and we go, England, England, we go the G, England. Pretty funny. You get this massive sound, but there's, Wembley Stadium, 70, 80, 100,000 people all singing that at once. It's going to be absolutely massive, but I guarantee probably 50% of the people singing it have zero idea of pitch. but the people that can sing loud enough, and the rest of us are sort of following along vaguely. But that's what makes it sound so massive. My secret answer for you is if you're on your own, you're doing it, just get in there, do a lot of takes, move around, try to get different space between it. Don't overly tune anything unless it's unbelievably out of tune. And if it is unbelievably out of tune, just go and sing it again. Use delays, use slaps. You think of the boom, boom, ka, boom, boom, ka. You can hear the slap delay on it, making it sound even bigger. It's random reflections and delays, pitch change, all of that stuff that's going to make it feel bigger still. And if you want, take some of those vocals and send them to a bus with some detuning going on and blend that back in. Random delays, detuning, all of that will make it feel a bit bigger. It doesn't have to be completely loud and totally out of tune, but just a little bit of, -3, 4, 5, 6 cents, on a bunch of different vocals blended in will give you an illusion of a lot bigger size. Hopefully that answered. What do you do when you only have one voice and you're trying to get a choir? Let us know. What's the best way to remove string squeaks on electric guitar tracks? I turn them down. But if you're saying it's a squeak on an actual middle of a performance, it's tough, because if the squeak is moving chord to chord, then just go in there and turn it down. Because if it's like shrang, dang, squeak, scrang, dang, squeak, scrang, you've got time to remove it. If you've got a squeak in the middle of a ringing note, that's where it can get a little bit painful. Obviously, dynamic EQ can get in there and find that specific frequency. If you can afford it, the Soothe 2 is a favorite of all of us. You've seen every engineer and producer I've interviewed uses Soothe. And no, I don't get an affiliate or make any money from it. Oak Sound. But there is a reason why all of us like it. Reed talked about it, Daryl talked about it, I'm in love with it. Everybody we're interviewing is loving that plugin. But there are other ones as well. Multiband compressors. I'd go with a dynamic EQ or the Soothe first. If you've got an intelligent plugin that can sit there and take those specific frequencies out, just get really aggressive on that. And every time that 7K rip your head off kind of sound comes in, you can pull it out. You can, of course, draw it out on an EQ. That may or may not work, because you might be hollowing out a sound. If it's wide enough, this is probably somewhere where you either draw it out between chords. Yeah, it's probably a little bit as I move the chord a little bit over the chord singing. Yeah, if I'm trying to get this, definitely get the low going, but the high squeakers in there, that's a dynamic EQ. De-essers are great. A de-esser is a single band dynamic EQ. Go in there, put the de-esser where you can actually see, you can solo the frequency. Most de-essers have that. I know the Waves ones do. Just go in there and then find it. Just go in there and find that frequency. And you can use it as a de-esser and just, it will pull out. If it's 7K, which is horrible on the squeaks, if it's 7K peaking dramatically, it will just pull it out that moment. De-essers, good one. The reason why the other ones are dynamic EQs, the intelligent ones like Soothe and the others are so useful, is because that frequency might be slightly different in different areas. But a lot of the time it is that offending 7K that's going to rip your head off. A de-esser will do it. But it's random. So go in there on the de-esser and see if you can find that frequency. You might have 2 different frequencies, so you could use 2 different de-essers where it gets massive build up. And don't be afraid to automate. Either pull it down in volume or turn the de-esser off when you don't need it. Go in there and automate it. Because sometimes it might be on this, on that little squeak. That squeak that's happening, the way you set it up on that chord might be perfect, but then maybe on that next chord I'm playing, maybe it's grabbing too much 7K, but I need to have it on there. So I could either mute and bypass the plugin, or I could change the threshold for that chord. That is where digital is our friend. We can take our plugins and we can automate them to do what we need when we need it. It's a godsend from the old days of, not that long ago, when you used to have to, I used to double up channels on SSLs, have a vocal coming out of 3 different channels, and then have different processing on it for different reasons, and then mute between it. It wasn't that long ago I was sitting in a mix with Mark Ender on the Frey album, watching him with 2 or 3 channels mute and unmute phrases, because he had different processing going on the SSL 9 J or K, I can't remember, and on the 9000. So bear that in mind. Now, plugin, you can do it all on one channel. You can automate, turn off different plugins, all on there. Change the thresholds from words to words, do all kinds of fun stuff. It's a great time to be making music. Well, thank you. That was a wonderful week. Thank you. Please, if you've got comments about how you do the get rid of the string squeaks, how you do song composition, whether you believe in that format. Not that I'm saying every song has to be in that format. I'm just saying, we was asked about modern song composition, so I went for a modern answer. Whatever you want to talk about. And of course, remember, below is where we scour for more questions. Eric over there will go and take the questions and we'll use them for next week. So please leave some comments and questions below. Thank you ever so much for watching. You all rock. Have a marvelous time recording and mixing, and we'll see you all again very soon. Adios, farewell, so long, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen. Bye.